A crisis in Greece will have ripple effects on the global economy and send countries spiraling into recession. Joining me now to talk more about this is Lew Rockwell, chairman of the Ludwig von Mises Institute. How much danger is the euro in at this point?
I hope a lot of danger. I mean, I hope the euro goes out of existence. The euro was a mistake. It was a centralizing mistake, just like the European Union itself was a mistake. But I think it's important to clarify what the actual issue is here in Greece and the euro and all that. It's not that Greece is being bailed out, or they would like to bail out Greece. It's the banks that are being bailed out. The banks that hold the Greek debt, that bought this very risky debt, paying vast interest rates, expecting that they would be bailed out if Greece couldn't pay. So what this agreement is, they want to harm the Greek people, put the boot on the neck of the Greek people and grind them into the dirt so the big banks can be repaid. Well, that's wrong. We don't want that to happen. If we want to rebuild on some kind of a firm basis of prosperity, not only in Europe but in this country, then the banks have to go. I mean, you cannot keep propping up these banks. It's destroying the euro, it's destroying the EU. Those two things I think are good, but it's also destroying the prosperity and the living standards of the people of Europe and of the United States and of other places in the world. So the banks are out of control. The banks are, of course, never mentioned in any of this. We don't hear the banks being mentioned when they're discussing this, because that's all sort of the secret message. And I think that we have to focus on what is the trouble. Again, also the whole question of contagion. If General Motors goes out of existence, not only does it not hurt the other automobile companies, they're probably all having a party that they have less competition. But the banks are all connected together. They're all inherently bankrupt because of their fractional reserves. No bank has everybody's money in it. It doesn't take a very large number of customers demanding their money to put any bank out of existence, were it not for central banks. So the ECB in Europe, the Federal Reserve in this country, cause vast damage, bring on booms and busts, these recessions and depressions, in order to protect the banks. So we live in some kind of bankocracy, whether it's in Europe or in this country. We need to end that. We need sound money. We need honest banking. We need an end to central banking. And by the way, it is all happening. They may keep this going a little bit longer in Europe, but the banks are so out of control, so leveraged, so in debt, that there's not enough money in the world really to fix these dangerous and monstrous institutions. So they have to be reformed. We need massive reform, and maybe this is going to be happening. There is economic pain coming, more pain. We're already in pain. We're already in a very serious recession in the U.S. and in Europe too. There's no recovery going on. Things are getting worse. So we only have a hope in really some kind of a serious reform. It doesn't do the alcoholic any good to keep taking another bottle of liquor.
Okay,
Even though there's going to be pain when he stops, that's what's necessary.
And you had mentioned that, the euro, bad news, not good for the Eurozone there, but there's fear that if they don't rescue the euro, that it's going to send the continent into a recession. What's your response to that fear?
Well, the continent is in a recession, but it'd be far better to have, for example, the Deutschmark back in existence, which was a less crazy currency, less inflated. There's problems with all fiat currencies, all paper currencies, but far better to have each individual country having their own individual currency than this European-wide currency. There are some people, John Maynard Keynes, for example, wanted a world currency. He wanted a Bancor, and there are some people who want that would be even worse. So we want political decentralization, monetary decentralization, as long as we have a fiat currency. If we had a gold standard, then of course gold is exactly the same, of the same weight and fineness, whether it's in Sri Lanka or Luxembourg or Venezuela. That's actually what we'd like to have if we want real growth, sound money, honest money, and not the government and the big banks and the other big institutions affiliated with governments ripping us off.
So, Lee, it sounds like you think the euro should be dropped just as a currency, but right now the discussion is to drop Greece from the Eurozone. Do you think that is in the best interest of the Eurozone to give Greece the boot?
Well, I think it's probably in the best interest of Greece, not the Greek establishment, but of course it's bought off and threatened I'm sure that when Papandreou was meeting in the G20, they had him on the rack and they were turning the wheel and had the thumb screw on him and all the rest. That's, of course, the way these people operate. But I think it is in the interest of the people of Europe, of the individual countries of Europe, that the euro go out of existence, that each country have its own currency. Then you have Germany being far sounder, Luxembourg being far sounder, Austria being far sounder than Greece or Portugal or Spain or whatever is, although that could change, of course. Everybody can get sounder. But decentralization is the way this European Central Bank, controlled by these bureaucrats in Brussels, who more and more are setting up an authoritarian regime, trying to run every aspect of everybody's life in every country, just like, by the way, the U.S. government does it here. It was not a good thing to have a big centralized government in the U.S. It's not a good thing to have it in Europe either. We need decentralization, break up, freedom, honest money, sound money, honest banking.
Great, Lou. That is all the time we have. That was Lew Rockwell, chairman of the Ludwig van Mises Institute.